Hey everybody, welcome back to A Brief on Grief. Um, kind of, well, definitely related to the previous video that I made on loneliness, to hone in a little bit more on the grief of loneliness. Loneliness is just a different version or different word for the emotions that we can feel when we feel disconnected in an area of our life or are lacking that authentic connection or that authentic intimacy where we feel seen, heard, validated in a relationship in our lives. So either in an intimate relationship, so that the three levels of connection, I think I did talk about in the last video. It's a universal need for us to have this authentic connection. We can feel loneliness if we're missing it in an area with an intimate partner, if we're missing it in an area with friends and family, and if we're missing it in an area of feeling like belonging and connection with our community and our world around us. So a lack of that authentic connection or intimacy in any one of those areas creates loneliness. And this video specifically, I wanted to talk about the grief and loneliness that the so many emotions of grief and loneliness and messiness and vulnerability of going against family expectations, choosing or making a decision that is not aligned with what your family thinks you should do or shouldn't do, or misaligned with what your family may need from you. I couldn't begin to tell you how real this one is for me in my life at different levels, and very real for me right now, and most definitely a lot in the past year, but definitely a lot even in the past few months. Our family, the people we grow up with, our siblings, our grandparents, our parents, those are our first sources of love. We learn what love is from our family. And so, of course, this can be one of the most vulnerable relationships to challenge that feeling of love or to challenge that connection, right? So, especially if we've shared a certain connection with our family all our lives based on certain roles, because as I'm learning in this insane journey the last 5 years, is that we actually create roles for ourselves in our families. We all actually, not consciously, but we fall into roles in our family, again, because it's what our immature child brain that decides very young, usually before the age of 7, what is the safe position and the safe role to play in our families. And then we stay in those roles until we're adults and well into our adulthood sometimes. And they're not always the most effective roles for us in our lives. And it can not feel like a nourishing kind of love to us when we're adults later on. And it can actually create problems in our adult relationships because it was learned in a dynamic when you were a child, when your brain was immature, and it was actually more like a trauma response. We learn these roles and where we fit is safe in our family so we can hold on to that connection that we need to survive. So when we reach a point in our lives where we start questioning those roles and we start doing things different that go outside of those roles, and then are against what our family is used to us being and used to expecting from us, there's actually no human word for how vulnerable that can be. Vulnerable is a word. There is actually, I cannot think of a human word. Maybe I'll go on an adventure looking for what another word is to describe that. But I know anybody out there who knows what I'm talking about, and I know there is probably 8 billion people, over 8 billion people that can resonate with this video. We all have families. We all have problems with our families at different levels. So I know, and anybody that's is going through a period of adulthood where they're reflecting deeply into themselves, the way they grew up, into their relationships with their families, into their relationship in general with people and with love, and digging deeper into that to see what the barriers could be in their lives or some of the patterns that they could be repeating in their lives, it always brings us back to our family. So I know that there are millions, if not billions, of people out there that can resonate with this video right now, and can relate to the fact that there probably is no human word to describe some of the pain and that can be involved in this shifting of roles. Excruciating is something that just popped up right now. It can at times be excruciating, because what happens when we act differently than our family is used to. And I'm not saying that every family member and at every time or whatever will be acting the same way as what's happening in my family, in my world, but if we have a response that feels unloving and criticizing and judgmental, which can often happen because this is what we do as humans when we feel in danger and when something's unfamiliar. So this is not out of a judgment and an attack on my family, because I've been in that situation too. When we feel afraid, when we feel abandoned, we can attack. It can be a natural human reaction. But for the source of this video, flipped on the other end, if you feel that kind of reaction as you're taking these different steps and making maybe different decisions that family members don't understand and are triggering them, it can be excruciatingly painful, and bring up a lot of emotions of grief, a lot of emotions, big one being shame, right? Because you're challenging your role that's always been safe in your life, and you're challenging a inner child role. So it will trigger emotions of your inner child, like an inner child, like kind of terror and fear and shame and grief it has the potential of doing that. And that is definitely what I have been going through on and off for the last year, but at different cycles all through my life, but definitely more in the last couple years. And I don't know if I'd ever spoken or created a video directly on the grief of, I know I've done it on the grief of changing roles and stuff in your life and how hard that can be and how much grief there can be on that. But really this about specifically doing it in your family has another level of grief and vulnerability and pain that is sometimes hard to put into words, which is why it was hard to do today too. So for anybody out there that can resonate with this, you're not alone. If you feel excruciatingly painful going through this right now, you are not alone. It is, and one of the most important things that I want to say related to this topic, it is absolutely, I believe, one of the most badass forms of courage that exists to change something you've done all your life, to change a role of the way you sit in your family all your life, because you realize it's not only feels good for you anymore, it is creating relationships that are not nourishing in your life, right? It's having an impact on many different areas of your life. So it is badass courageous to take steps towards shifting that. So celebrating you in your grief and your pain. If you're experiencing this, I'm also celebrating you and celebrating myself at the same time. Okay, see you next time. Bye.